Good morning, everyone. You are very welcome to the Men's Health webinar. The panel would be delighted to receive any questions you may have. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your PC laptop screen. If you are using an iPad, you will find this feature located at the top of your screen. Now, without further ado, I will hand you over to your host for today, Lorcan Brennan, Men's Development Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and hello, everybody, and welcome to International Men's Health Week for 2024. What's another year? It certainly feels like a really fast year. I think the last time I looked at my diary, it was February, and here we are. The sun is shining in the southeast, and we have Leaving Cert and other exams. And of course, we have International Men's Health Week as well. I'm Lorcan Brennan from the Men's Development Network. I'm here in County Wexford today, broadcasting from the bottom of the garden. The wonders of science is really fantastic. And I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of all of our partners who are very much at the heart of Men's Health Week. I will mention them because they deserve to mention. The Health Service Executive, we have the Men's Health Forum in Ireland, we have the Men's Development Network, and we have the Southeast Technological University. And over the years, the partnership, including other partners as well, has been very much at the heart of what we've been about in relation to men's health on the island of Ireland. And today is a special event because we only have, I think, an hour. Usually we give a little bit longer. So we're going to keep this moving today, and we're going to bring you some really, really interesting things along the way. Now, it's back in December 23 when we started talking with our other 100 partners with Coli Fowler in relation to International Men's Health Week. And with that group, we came up with our poster that's up behind us, and we came up with Know Your Numbers and at Men's Health Counts. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. You've already heard Jean saying to you that we have our Q&A. So please do go to the Q&A if you have anything that you want to share with us, and we will come back to you. And we also have, I suppose, some really good people lined up for you, really good panel discussion. Later on, we have Finian Murray, we have a man called Glenn Kaufmann, and we've Dr. Alan Smith, who will be here as well. And of course, we have Rob Kearney. Rob is going to look in and have a chat with us as well. So that's really, really fantastic. But to begin, I'm going to bring on Mr. Men's Health Week himself, and that's Coli Fowler. And Coli's going to watch with me a little video for a few moments to get us in the mood, Coli, and the whole country in the mood for International Men's Health Week. So sit back and we'll watch this, and I'll chat to you then, Coli. There you have it, Coli. Find out more, mhfi.org. What's another year, Coli? We're here. We only have a brief time to talk about this, but tell us about the week. Tell us about the poster. Where do people go and how do we find out more? Over to you.
Happy Men's Health Week to you, Lorcan. It's great to see you again. As everyone knows, today is the first day of Men's Health Week 2024, and we do have a lot of resources still available for anyone who would like them. It's never too late to start celebrating. It's never too late to start marking the week. And the best place, as you said, to go to is mhfi.org. There you will find some posters. You will find copies of the postcards, the Z cards, the Action Man booklets that we talk about later on, the Men's Health and Numbers report cards. And even if you like, there's a game to play. There's an online retro-style arcade game where you can learn all about men's health, be a secret agent for the day, and kick off Men's Health Week in a very positive way.
Well, look, that's good. And as you're speaking, Jean is putting up the information there. There's going to be stuff in the bar that you can grab and go with. And that's really, really important. Coli, the poster's up behind me, but here we'll have a look at it up close. There we go. So Know Your Numbers and Men's Health Counts. Just very briefly, how do we arrive at that with our partners? Fantastic people involved in bringing all these ideas together and putting them out there.
Indeed. This year, we've had the biggest number of partners ever. We've had nearly 100 organisations across the island of Ireland who have been involved in helping to shape the week. Someone, I can't even remember who it was now, came up with this idea of Know Your Numbers, because they said that in a sense, you know, there's lots of different kinds of numbers we need to know. And some men are good at numbers and some aren't. At school, I was probably the most rubbish person in the world at maths and numbers. I still am. But there's numbers that everybody needs to know. If you're the service provider, you need to know what the state of men's health in Ireland is. If you're a man yourself, you need to know your cholesterol, you need to know your blood pressure. And for all of us, we need to know those key numbers when things go wrong. So it seemed to be a great all-embracing kind of a topic that everyone could fit in underneath and find something in their work to celebrate.
Well, look at mhfi.org, still go in there. You'll see all the resources, postcards, posters. You'll see this, we'll talk about in a while too, the card that's out there as well. And of course, we have our Action Man booklet. People might be familiar with this super one-stop shop booklet, really good booklet. They're free. You can go in and get a PDF of this. Coli, we wish you well for the week. Follow you on social media as well. We'll come back to that later on. All of that's inside. So thanks, Coli, for coming in and being with us at the start. And we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks very much, Lorcan. Bye.
Thank you very much. Now that's Coli, mhfi.org. Please do go in. Some of it's already been put up there by Jean and you'll be able to grab it and go with it. But there's loads of other information that you can go in there for as well. Now, Dr. Noel Richardson needs very little introduction, I suppose, to lots of people who are online here today. There are many new people who have joined us today for many different reasons. But look, I want you to watch a little video for a few moments because Noel is not here with us today. He usually is, but he's away. Internationally, he's highly respected for his work on our national men's health policy, action planning, capacity building, and mentoring resort. He's just a really, really good man in relation to men's health, and it does really good work. What we want to, I caught up with Noel just before he went out of the country. I think it was last Friday. And I said, Noel, will you help us frame the week? And especially in relation to the report card in Knowing Your Numbers. And this is there online as well. Really, really good resource. Really, and we'll come back to that later on. But I just want you to sit back and let Noel bring us on a kind of an insightful conversation in relation to what you will find as a picture of health in Ireland for this year in the updated report card. So if we can roll that little video, we'll go from there. Noel, you're really good to give us your time. We really appreciate that you're here with us today. We know you're very busy in other places, so this is actually a pre-record. We won't pretend you're live, but thank you so much for coming on to be with us, and especially in relation to the webinar for this year for International Men's Health Week, where we're talking about knowing your numbers, that men's health counts. And you're on to talk with us especially about the report card. But first of all, know your numbers, men's health counts. Knowing your numbers is important. You're a researcher, you know, you're a capacity builder. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Absolutely. I think the forum has picked a really good catchphrase this year. And it's important at a couple of levels. You know, it's important for decision makers, policy makers, service providers to know, you know, what the key figures and statistics so that they can target services and programs more appropriately. It's important for men themselves to know key facts and figures about their own health, whether it's to do with cholesterol or blood pressure or how many fruit and veg they should be having per week. And men like to know the facts and figures about things, so that's important. And it's also important in terms of knowing your numbers in terms of where to go to for help if you need to. You know, if you're in a crisis situation or if you need to know just for, you know, health and support services in your local community, it's important at that level as well. So it really catches, you know, at all the different levels our attention, and I think it's a really good slogan this year.
Now, the report card is a really novel idea, and it started a good few years ago. And it really, as you say, it's presented in a style that's very accessible for anybody who's interested in health or men's health. You've been part of that process of bringing this to the nation with, of course, Coli Fowler and
I suppose the origins of the report card goes back to 2004 to the first Men's Health in Ireland report that the Men's Health Forum in Ireland produced. And there was a real interest in that at the time. I remember it featured on the 9 o'clock news, which took us all by surprise. It was a simple enough report, a compilation of secondary sources of data. But it spoke to a real curiosity about, you know, why was it that men died younger than women? You know, was this something that was ingrained in men's DNA, or was it something to do with culture and masculinity and, you know, behaviors that men learned? So it sparked off some interesting discussion and debate about men's health, which was really important at the time. So moving forward then, 20 years after that, the forum, to celebrate its 21st anniversary, decided to do a follow-up report, a very in-depth, detailed trends report, yeah, which captured, again, across the island of Ireland, all the key statistics in men's health. And out of that came two report cards, one for the Republic and one for the North of Ireland. And these are the very accessible documents that you talked about. They're built around infographics, very easy to read, and it distills the key kind of figures and facts about men's health. And the most recent one was just produced in the last couple of weeks for Men's Health Week this year to coincide with the theme. And that's available on the Men's Health Forum in Ireland website, mhfi.org.
Now, I know that's going to be talked about across the webinar today. For yourself looking in through the window after the 4 years, or even go back over the 24 years, what stands out as positive? Are there positives in there?
Certainly are. I mean, men's health is definitely improving. Life expectancy continues to increase. There's still a 4-year gap between male and female life expectancy, but over the course of the last 20 to 25 years, it's been steady improvements. And a lot of that is due to improvements in terms of the main causes of death, cardiovascular diseases and cancers, both of which have improved dramatically. And that's down to a range of factors, you know, better screening, diagnostics, more effective treatment options, better lifestyle behaviors. We see in the report card, for example, that smoking continues to decrease.
Yeah.
It's down now to 20% from 24% a number of years, just a few years ago. So that's a real positive. But then again, against that, then that we need to be mindful that there's a lot of, it's an aging population. So as we get older, it's really important that more people are living healthier lives. And one of the concerning points from the report is that over half of those over the age of 70 have a chronic illness or condition. Now, obviously, as we get older, we're more vulnerable to chronic illnesses and diseases. But as the older population increases, that's going to put a huge toll on our resources to manage chronic conditions. So it does really emphasize the need for early intervention and promoting healthier lifestyles, and as well as more systemic supports for people to lead healthier and productive lives.
So really the report cards are really vital in relation to policy and action and planning going forward.
There's two things about that, Lorcan. I think it provides a good snapshot at any given time as to how we're doing. But more importantly, it tracks patterns over time. So we can see if life expectancy is increasing, where are the gains being made.
Yeah.
But then we need to look beyond the aggregated data as well. So even though life expectancy has improved generally, we know that for certain groups of men, it's actually at best plateauing or even getting worse.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's a bigger gap in life expectancy between men in the most deprived areas compared to the least deprived areas. There's a gap of 5 years between those two groups compared to 4 years between men and women. So we shouldn't get bogged down in overall differences between males and females. We need to look at individual differences within men. So physical activity is another example. You know, physical activity levels have been improving, but there's a huge drop off as men get older. Yeah. So we need, that's an area we need to target. You know, how can we promote physical activity in an age appropriate way to older men? And again, while there's a lot of positives, some of the areas we need to be concerned about are obesity levels are still very high. Patterns of drinking, you know, binge drinking is still very much the norm in Irish society. And I mentioned about the drop off in physical activity levels. And what's also striking is a real concern is sexually transmitted infections have increased dramatically over the recent years, and HIV levels have doubled over the last 10 or 15 years. So whilst great inroads were made in those areas a decade or more ago, you can see that complacency can set in and patterns reverse as well. So that's why the report card is so important, to keep men's health on the agenda, to keep us alive to issues of concern that are you know, coming through that we need to be mindful of.
Noel, on a week where especially we try and mark and even celebrate men's health in some way, you know, based on the report card and some of the things you're saying to us, what is the ask then in relation to even a webinar like today? You know, where should we be looking? What are the ways forward that you see as being part of addressing some of those really big issues that we're talking about, and the role of partnership in that, even cross-partnership with different departments in government? How important is all of that in how we approach it?
It's really important, Lorcan, yeah. And I mean, a lot of the work today, this session isn't about talking about specific programs, but if you look at programs like Sheds for Life or Men on the Move or Farmers of Hearts or On Firm Ground Engage program, all these are so important to target programs to specific vulnerable groups, and also with the Engage program to equip service providers with the tools to engage so-called hard-to-reach groups of men. So that's really important in terms of targeting resources to those population groups of men most in need. And allied to that, then we need to look at men not as an overall population group, but as a range of different subgroups that have different issues and that need different strategies to engage them for different health issues. So that's really important. We also need to be mindful that, you know, at a time where we have record levels of employment and the economy is booming, but not everybody is doing well, you know, so
Yeah.
there's still a huge problem with homelessness. There's 17.5% of men are living in poverty. So that boom that we can assume is impacting everyone, that's not quite the case either. So we need to continue to look at how we target those groups of men most in need, and how we can equip service providers with the skills and tools to work more effectively with those groups.
Very good, Noel. We're going to bring some of what you said into other sections of the webinar. What is your last word to us? International Men's Health Week, you've been involved for many years. Where do you see the hope and the light going forward, especially the week we're in it?
I think, I mean, we've talked a number of times about men's health not being a greenfield site at this stage. We've learned a lot in the last 20 years. We've learned a lot about what works, what doesn't work. There's a lot of really useful toolkits, resources. There's a lot of experienced people out now who've trained up and engaged and have brought that knowledge and expertise back to their respective organizations. So I think there's a sea change there that's tilting the balance more towards men being more proactive about their own health, taking more an interest in their health. We see a lot more men's health champions, advocates, speaking out about mental health and suicide prevention, for example. So I mean that's a real positive. I think that we've a lot to build upon. Still a lot to do. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a real danger that we could somehow assume that because life expectancy is increasing overall for men, that the job is done. It's by no means done.
Yeah.
There's still an awful lot of work that needs doing, and we need to keep men's health on the map. And that's why the theme for this year's Men's Health Week is so important. Know your numbers. And again, the call is to service providers to know your numbers, to know where they need to target their services and resources, to men themselves to take responsibility for their own health by knowing their numbers, whether it's blood pressure or cholesterol or what's a healthy weight, and then to know what numbers to contact if we need, you know, help or to access a professional for a health issue.
Noel, thank you so much as always for sharing your experience with us, and much of what you said will come into the webinar, and I'm sure we're going to be looking at some of those things you've mentioned as well. And till the next time, go well. Have a good Men's Health Week.
You too, Lorcan. Thanks a million.
There you have him, Noel, always clear, insightful, and knows the evidence and bringing us some really good information there. Just in relation to the report card, as he said himself, there are things have been achieved, but there's little room really for not staying the pace and looking and keeping working for and with all as partners in relation to Men's Health Week on the island of Ireland and beyond even. This is what it looks like inside in the report card. So when you download it, there's a lot of, it's all done in infographics. It's a fabulous, fabulous one-stop shop for information in relation to it. So you'll have this, especially if you're out there and you're working in the field and you're doing presentations or whatever, you can get great screen grabs for really good information that you can stand over. That's a snapshot of men's health on the island of Ireland. So thank you very much for Noel, and go well. Now look at who we have. Rob. Rob, would you come on and say hello to us? Because what do you say about Rob Kearney? I mean, I'm going to say this about you, Rob. First of all, you're very, very welcome. Secondly, 95 caps. Wait to hear this about yourself. 95 caps, 2 Six Nation Grand Slams, 2 Triple Crowns, 2 Lions Tours, European Player of the Year 2012, and much more, now commentary and all kinds of stuff. A remarkable career, Rob, and you've been asked a million questions about rugby, and I will ask you a few. But International Men's Health Week is a really important calendar date for us here on the island of Ireland. And as a man who's been a leader in sport and in the field of sport and beyond that as well, I want to start somewhere completely different, because I listened to Sean O'Rourke and he was interviewing you, and it was a fabulous interview. Go listen to it, please, folks, if you get a chance. Sean O'Rourke's interview with Rob. And he just said to you somewhere along in the interview, he said, amazing, he said, all the accolades, all the trophies, all the surprising days out, the birth of your son just absolutely blew you away. As to say in English paper too, discuss. Tell me a little bit about that. What was that about after all the sport?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's just to give a quick intro. Great to be here, Lorcan. I think Men's Health Week has come on so far in the last number of years. It's amazing to have so many more people behind it, so many more men getting comfortable talking about these things and getting behind the initiative. So well done to you and your team, firstly, on that. I suppose a recent dad, Lorcan, for those who don't know, I had my first child 9 months ago. And I suppose I was very much just referencing that first day of bringing new life into the world when it's your own child. And I was unbelievably lucky and blessed to have had some of the best days out that sport has given me. You know, to win a Grand Slam for your country is the pinnacle of what I could have done as a rugby player. And when I retired from rugby, I was always very I was apprehensive and I was nervous about, will I ever be able to reach some of those highs, that euphoric feeling of doing a lap of honor or singing Aron Naveen or Ireland's Call for your country beside your best mate. Sometimes it was my brother looking up at the parents in the stand, and they were really incredible days. And, you know, I never thought I'd get back to reaching some of those highs. But like you've just mentioned there, the birth of your first it was incredibly special. And it absolutely smashed all of those great days out of the park for, you know, just for that feeling and that buzz.
Wow, yeah, that's a lovely start actually to the conversation I want to have. And we've only a short window. You just also mentioned it, Rob, you know, the lights go off, the stadium goes quiet, people go off back to their homes, and you step out into a new place. Transitions in men, and I'm 61, you know, thinking about transitions myself in my life. You know, what's that like? You know, can we do it by ourselves? We're inclined to do stuff by ourselves, but you were part of a team experience. How important is it even in transitions for yourself to have some kind of a team around you to find that path, to find that tribe into a new place in your life?
Yeah, it's very difficult, and it was always something that, again, I was apprehensive, I was nervous, I was worried about that point in time when I did have to transition out of the game, for a number of different reasons. You know, I was very lucky, Lorcan. From the age of 5 years of age, the only thing that I wanted to do was play rugby for Ireland. So I had this single life purpose almost to go after. And like I say, I was lucky to live that dream. You know, you work so hard your whole life to become an expert or professional at something. And then you wake up one day and you're told you can't do this anymore. You can't use those skills that you spent your whole life doing. And you have to go out and, you know, find a new identity for yourself. You have to try and find a new passion, a new purpose. And all those things are quite daunting. You know, in terms of having a team around you, yes, it's very important to have, you know, a good support structure of family and friends. But sometimes there are very different points in life that you just have to navigate through yourself and make sure that that you're given the very best, you know, possibility of your own way to get through it. And, you know, I suppose, again, I was lucky. I did it for 18 years. So I had great time spent on it. So I never looked back with sort of bitterness of jealousy that I wasn't still able to do it. So I was really, you know, keen to take on this mindset of gratitude that I was able to do it for so long. And to be thankful that I did have all of those great days. You know, the next most important thing that I tried to do with myself was just to be kind and to be patient with myself.
Yeah.
That I wasn't going to fall into something that, you know, I immediately liked straight away, or how I was going to fill that void of being around teammates, having a structure and a schedule. You know, for any day of the week in 7 months' time, at a certain point of the day, I could tell you exactly where I'd be and what I'd be doing, and most likely what I'd be wearing. You know, so that is a big life adjustment in itself.
Wow, yeah. Really interesting what you're saying around that, negotiating your own way at certain times in our lives. You worked under very different coaches. Some I know were really, really challenging. We won't go there today, but what I am interested about, I was reading around Andy Farrell and the team, and like the restructuring or the reimagining of how it is we prepare. And I remember you saying that, you know, when you're building a team, you try and embrace and bring in the new guys and settle them in as soon as you can. And there's something about that with Andy Farrell and the team, that they're talking like vulnerability is a new word we often hear, that if we can reclaim our vulnerability, bounce back in resilience after maybe a poor performance, is that important in the game? Because, you know, if it's all about just living here all the time, that wouldn't work. So being able to name your vulnerability must be important in relation to getting a grip on it and working with it.
Yeah, it's hugely important. And I suppose, you know, we have to be very careful that we don't, you know, that we recognize there is a difference between something like being vulnerable and also resilience. You know, resilience for me very much is being able to overcome setbacks. And, you know, every single person listening on here today will have faced countless setbacks over the course of their life. And most likely they're going to face more setbacks over the remainder of their life. It's just natural. It's part of what life does. And when you're in those setbacks, it's very difficult sometimes to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But invariably, we do come out the other way, and we find ways to navigate through those setbacks and come out. And it's really important to take stock after you have, and to look back and say, you know what, I was going through a really bad time there, difficulties for one reason or another, but I came through it. I found a way to come through. And each time we come through those different setbacks, I think we add another layer of resilience to who we are and our makeup. And that's something that everyone has done, but maybe they just don't take the time to reflect and to appreciate and understand that. On the topic of vulnerability, you're so right. This is something that, you know, Andy Farrell has very much brought into his coaching philosophy. It's something that he feels really strongly about. And he just, you know, if I try and boil it down, he wants people to just be themselves and not come into an environment where they feel as if they have to act differently because of the nature of the other personalities around them, or, you know, the perception that being a part of a rugby team, a big male environment, big, strong, fit men, you know, it's breaking down some of those barriers too. And he's done a great job with that.
Can I ask you this, because it's kind of linked to that last question? The late Tony O'Reilly, who left us recently, he said somewhere in a biography I read about him a long time ago that everything he needed to know about business and life, he learned it in sport. That ring a bell with you in your transition into the new part of your life?
Yeah, it doesn't. I still can't work Microsoft Word or a PowerPoint, or barely able to switch on the computer today. But yes, there is a huge amount of transferable skills that you're able to take from sport, or certainly I was able to take from sport. You know, the key things remain the same. That, you know, to play for Ireland and to be the best rugby player that I could be, you know, I had to wake up every single morning and try and get better. You know, that element of self-improvement every single day. And you might only be making marginal little gains day on day, and you get an injury and you go backwards, but then you work hard to get back to where you were beforehand. You know, so there's so many skills, I suppose, things that we might have taken for granted, of, you know, turning up on time, or when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it, and you're able to communicate with people and work in a team. You know, skills that, like I say, probably took for granted when I was playing, but skills that are very much useful for the life after.
Rob, what would you say? I was thinking about this the other day because, you know, the transferable skills and the experience, and you go on and we look back, and maybe we can never really give advice to somebody behind us at one level. There might be, but I was wondering, you know, after listening to you talking with Sean O'Rourke, especially, what now would you say to your 12 or 14-year-old self, or your 16-year-old self, teenager? What would, I mean, not necessarily about the message of life, but the things that really matter. The quality, what matters? What would you be saying to that young guy, that young Rob, in sixth year or transition year? Say, don't let this out of your toolkit. Like, is there anything along the way? Maybe it's not a fair question. Have a go.
Listen, for me, Lorcan, I think the key to life is happiness, you know, and it's been able to wake up every day, or as many days of the years as you can, with a smile on your face. And you know, different things bring different people happiness. You know, happiness to me might be very different to you, but I think it's important to understand as early on, or to take stock on the things in life that actually do make you happy. And is it spending time with friends? Is it family? Is it, you know, going away on holidays, reading a book, going for walks, whatever it is, you know, you try and take stock and understand what those things are. And you listen, you can do that on, you know, on a daily basis. And sometimes we rush through days so quickly that, you know, you never actually stop for a moment and look back and say, you know what, that was actually a really good day. And then ask yourself another question and say, well, why was that a really good day? And then you can start piecing together some of the puzzle pieces. And, you know, if you decide that A, B, C, and D were part of making today really good, well, then I'm going to try and incorporate them in tomorrow and the next day. And then slowly after a while, you know, you build habits, and then these things become part of your daily living. You know, as a rugby player, if I look back specifically from a sporting perspective and say, what would be the one bit of advice? It would probably to have been looked after my body a little bit better from a physical standpoint. You know, our bodies are our biggest assets. We only get one of them. And if you mismanage it, if you treat it poorly, you know, it's going to cause you detriment in the long term. And you know, when you introduced me at the start, 95 caps for Ireland, you know, again, incredibly lucky to have gotten 95, but my biggest regret is not getting 100 caps plus. I think I missed 30 games with Ireland. And had I been more diligent and had I looked after my body better in my earlier years, I've no doubt that I would have had 100 plus.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, you spoke about happiness there, and for the nation with your colleagues, you were so much part of so many memorable and happy days for us as a nation. And unfortunately, I'm running on time, but I would have loved to talk more to you. The very final thing I'm going to ask you, Rob, we had Coli Fowler on earlier, mhfi.org, lots of resources and information. Knowledge is power. Would you give a call out? What would you say to people watching, especially maybe men, or, you know, in relation to finding those resources to maybe reflect on one action that we could do about changing and minding our bodies, minding our souls, minding our spirits?
I think the one action, and it's something that every single person can get better at, is educating ourselves more on the information. You know, information is power. And the more information you have, the better equipped you'll be at making some of those changes to your everyday life. And again, with that, you know, I'll go back to my previous point of you know, having that little bit of self-awareness and taking time out of every day to look back at your day and to incorporate the things that made you happy or made you feel a little bit healthier, and bring it into your next day. And above all else, this is my biggest thing when I was playing. Sleep is your best friend. It's so regenerative. It does everything good for you. Make sure you're getting as many hours sleep as you can.
It's on the little card even have. Sleep is on here. So well spotted and well said. Rob Kearney, it's just been an absolute dream and a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you for giving us your time. I know you're a busy man this week, so really, really appreciate it. Go well, mind yourself, mind your life, and thank you so much for all the great days.
My pleasure, Lorcan. Thank you very much.
That's Rob. Really fabulous conversation just to sit and chat like that. Unbelievable in the shed at the end of the garden. Where would you get it? As I say, just absolutely magic. So look, we still have lots more to come, and I'm going to ask on our panel discussion because Rob has linked us right into the little card, the Z card, and I have Finian and I have Glenn and I have Alan. I'm going to ask him to come on because we have one more little video to watch, and then we're going to have our panel discussion. And if the guys want to join me here, and then we can do intros and all in a few moments. There's our Glenn, and there's Finian, and I know Ala's there somewhere as well. And we'll just watch this little video as well when we get a chance, and off we'll go. And then we'll come back and we'll talk to you. Well done. So thank you very much. We have Glenn on there and we have Finian, and we're still waiting on our Al. He's there somewhere. And Rob is still there with us as well in the background. So can we begin by just asking some questions, folks? We want to ask you this first. Can I introduce you first? That'd be a really good plan to do, wouldn't it, first of all? So we have Glenn on as well there from Glenn. I had a chat with only a couple of weeks ago, and Glenn, you're more than welcome. You're very much part of the para bowls experience internationally, and you're pushing to have them become an Olympic sport, which is fabulous. And you also, as I say, really are very interested in men and how, I suppose, especially we make those transitions in sport as we go along the way. I know as well you were attracted to lawn bowls, especially in more recent years, because of a childhood stroke which left you with certain disabilities. So I really appreciate you being here, and lovely chatting to you the other day. Finian Murray needs probably little enough introduction, very much part of the HSE, and has been working with us over the years in so many different ways in relation to training on the island of Ireland. And then we've Dr. Alan Smith, who's a consultant in public health medicine, the health service executive, experienced chief pharmacist delivering healthcare services. And I know, Alan, you're really, really passionate, especially about screening. So you're going to talk to us about that here as well. And I think, Rob, are you going to stay with us as well, maybe? If you're there in the background, I can see you.
Sure am. Lorcan, still here.
Thank you very much. That's really, really good. So can I start with Finian? Because Rob, just before we finished up there, Finian, was talking about the Z card. Just a quick call out to you.
Yes.
And, say a little bit about the card, because Rob had mentioned especially the 8 hour sleep, which is really important to get.
Yeah. Now, the idea for the card came from the HSE card originally, which was called Know Your Numbers. And we decided to do for Men's Health Week this year, because the focus was on men's numbers, we decided to bring out a Men's Health Z card for the men, and it's for the island of Ireland. So it's a little bit different than the Healthy Ireland one in that it covers the whole island. And it's basically just goes through the key numbers that men need to know. For example, there's a 4-year life expectancy difference between the life expectancy for men and women. And Rob made a great point earlier. He was saying that, you know, you should always get enough sleep. And one of the panels on the Z card is that we all need 8 hours sleep every night, and to work 7 to 8. So if you could work to achieve that. But there are other numbers there. For example, just keep an eye on your blood pressure, which should be 120/80. That your cholesterol should be less than 5. That your waist should be less than or equal to 37 inches or 94 centimeters. And also there's a lovely panel here called, the 5 ways to health and well-being. So take 5, in other words, to connect with the people around you, be active, take notice of what's around you, give, which is very good for your health, and also keep learning, that life is about lifelong learning. And there are some numbers there then for support services on the card. So it's a tiny little card, as you say, and it fits into your wallet. It fits into your wallet like that there, and it has the same cover as the Action Man booklet. So it's part of the same branding there as well. So it's just a nice little thing to have that you can call on whenever you need it. So.
Very good, very good. And Glenn, just for yourself, knowing your numbers is really important in the bowls. Your own interest, Glenn, especially, we were talking with Rob just before we came on here, and we were talking about those transitions. And men, sometimes we get lost along the way in relation to maybe a sport that could suit us at one stage of our life, but is no longer applies to maybe where we are. Can you say a little bit about that for yourself? Because that's been at the part of the magic of your own life and rediscovery of staying active.
Absolutely. One of the things that you may be able to tell from the accent, I'm not Irish. I came from America about a dozen years ago, and I had never heard of lawn bowls. And in the States, the Paralympics is not very well known. We have Special Olympics, and they're getting more into Paralympics now. But until I got here, I hadn't really even considered sport as a big part of my life. But actually, as I've gotten older, I've been aware that I need to do more to be flexible and to have some muscle mass and things like that. And so I've transitioned into sport in kind of later life. And it's funny, in bowls, everyone thinks of it as, that sport that their nan, their older uncle plays, that kind of stuff. But it's really, it's a good sport for people of all ages because it's low impact. It's not strength or stamina based. It's about flexibility and strategy. And you can move into it and still be competitive throughout your life. It's funny, the number of people I know who are like, well, when I finish playing 5-a-side or tennis and I'm done with sport, then I'll take up bowls, or then I'll take up golf. There's this hierarchy of the active sports and the inactive stuff you do later in life, but it's just as important to stay active later in life and to sort of think about that and plan in advance to, maybe if I have, and it's not just people as they get older, it's like if you have a back injury or you lose flexibility or mobility for whatever reason, having a plan to, I'm going to take up something so that I stay active regardless of whatever issues you might have physically as you age.
So that's your call out, I think, for today. When I was reading the research on it, Glenn, I could see that 2 games is equivalent to walking a mile. So I mean, it's remarkable, some of the benefits, the aerobic benefits from the game itself. Alan, you're there with me as well, and I just want to ask Alan, because I know we talked about this before we came on, and we were saying that 40%, Alan, in relation to screening in men, and it's again, Rob was saying earlier on about recognizing that sometimes we need to stop and take action. This is something that 40% is a good figure, but it could be a lot gooder, excusing my bad English. We'd like to do something about that. Say a little bit about that for the bowel screening, because I had it myself. I went for it and I wasn't sure what it was, but I must say it certainly was non-intrusive, and I was able to get it followed up on,
Well, good to hear that, Lorcan. Yes, you're right. Bowel screen is probably not as well known as, say, breast check, which obviously targets women, but bowel screen is our national cancer screening program for bowel cancer, and it's obviously it's a unisex cancer, if I can describe it like that. But it's the second most common cancer, excluding the skin cancers affecting men. Number of deaths a year, about 1,000, probably split out 600 men, 400 women, something like that. And we invite about 250,000 men every year, or total people every year. And that's 250,000. And but we only get a relatively disappointing 40% uptake. So only 4 out of 10, 6 out of 10 leave the kit, throw it out, don't bother with it for whatever reason. And there's a host of reasons why they might do that. So, and I think we're gradually seeing a slow improvement. But what we really want to do, and events like today will probably help it. I mean, there's probably nobody listening or watching that doesn't know somebody who's been affected by this cancer. And we need to get that participation and uptake rate up over 50%. That's an achievement, and it's very doable. And I think part of the reason that people might be a bit hesitant are about it, that they might be afraid of this cancer. And it's probably worth mentioning that since the late 90s, early noughties, you know, when they talk about the 5-year survival rate was in of the order of about 50%. So not great, but since then it's approaching now 65, 70%. And that's astonishing increase. So that's over 30% increase. And Noel mentioned some of the reasons why, you know, better diagnosis, better surgery techniques, better radiotherapy, better targeted therapies, all this fancy stuff that has really come to the fore. So this is no longer the cancer to be frightened of. This is a cancer we can really put a dent in. So absolutely, if you want to get more information, all the info contact lines will be coming up on the chat there. And I'd encourage anyone, if it's not you, just encourage your dad, or your uncle, or your brother, anyone to register with the program, and we look after you from there. It's free.
Well done, yeah, well done. Rob, the fear factor that Alan's talking about for us as men, you know, the fear of knowing, not wanting to know, you know, your experience of that, I suppose, it is a real thing for us, isn't it? Especially around diagnostics, we mightn't feel we have the emotional, expressive intelligence enough to deal with bad news. What are we going to do with that? Or or sad news, if it's not even bad news?
Yeah, I think it's more, you know, there's so many different things going on with it, Lorcan, isn't it? That, you know, I think instinctively as men down through the years, and we're definitely making massive progress and strides in this, and, you know, we're more comfortable talking about things now. And I think sometimes in the past, we very much would like to bottle up our emotions and not want to know bad news and take this mindset of, I'll be fine, I'll deal with it myself, or I'll deal with it down the line, or it'll take care of itself. You know, but realistically, deep down, we all know somewhere very down in our gut that if I don't face this issue head on now, or if I don't try and understand more about my health and get checkups, etc., that I'm doing myself a disservice. And I think we also need to take on a little bit of the mindset that, you know, it's not just about doing yourself a disservice. It's about doing your family, your friends, all those loved ones, all those important people in your life, that you're doing them a disservice too, if you're not taking control and ownership of your own health. You know, so I think that's an important mindset for people to try and get into. And I don't mean that we do it out of selfish reasons, but there is very important people in our life that we have a duty to get on top of our own health too.
Very good. Glenn, would you agree with Rob in the sense of, like, maybe for men especially, or if we are in illness or coming out of illness, trying to find that transition into something that might suit us in relation to physical activity? You know, when we stop wanting to play for our favorite team and just want to watch them on the TV, that can be some of the challenge, can't it? Just to genuinely find a way back into something that's a physical activity for ourselves.
I mean, it's also not at the end of an illness like that, or at the end of something like that, but while you're in the midst of something like that, the mental health benefits of having something to work towards, of having a goal to work towards, like I'm gonna challenge myself to, you know, be more active as I'm recovering from this thing, gives you something to look forward to and something to work towards. And I think Rob will probably tell you, when you have a goal for these things, when you're working towards something, that's always a benefit, like mentally as well.
And tell me, Glenn, just when I stay with you for a moment, in your experience, you know, of especially men maybe coming into middle age, or do you see a lot of men maybe finding their way into the sport that you're in? Or, you know, do you bump into that challenge yourself with them saying, oh, look, I don't do activities anymore like that, you know?
There is that. And there's also, there's a camaraderie thing with it as well. People tend to pick it up a lot easier if they come with somebody. So like finding a sport that you can do with your mates. I mean, that's another part of it, is there's a lot of camaraderie in the younger sports and things. But if you're going to try something new, maybe come out with a friend And in lawn bowls, it's great because we don't just have singles matches, we have doubles, triples, fours. So if you come out with a friend, you've got a guaranteed, partner to play with in competitions right then. And you also can encourage each other and help each other, come out and meet people. But if you want to come out alone, that's good too. But these things are always seem to be easier if you do it with a friend. So, making transitions like that is always a little easier, I think.
Okay, and more sustainable if you do it, I suppose, with somebody as well. More easier to stay doing it. Alan, can I ask you, we've such a short window for this part of the day, but I really do want to get this call out. Rob has said, like, events like this week and especially like today are a really good opportunity for the call out. What more can we do, for example, in relation to something like, the bowel screening or the retina eye screening? What can we do? Is there something we're missing maybe for men that we might be able to do that would say, look, at people would come and take that and make that 40%, at least 50?
Yeah, I think we've all spoken about it in some way. It's information is king. And I think if you're curious about it or you want to know a little bit more, just find the resources, go to the resources that are widely available and learn a little bit more. I mean, I like the whole Action Man manual and that concept. And we have our own, mission if you choose to accept it. There's a nice sort of video there for people to look at it if people want to listen a little bit more about what the bowel screening program is. And it's very easy to do. So definitely go to the resources that are there. Definitely register. And if you're not sure, give us a call, get in contact with us, and we'll give you more information if you need it. I suppose I can't go without mentioning the chronic diseases that are appearing. As we all live a little bit longer, it's diseases like diabetes that will come to the fore as well. And it's not a cancer screening program, but diabetic retina screens diabetic patients for eye disease. And that's one of the difficulties that diabetic patients run into. And we're all seeing the numbers go up in relation to diabetes, and that's to do with lifestyle partially as well, some environmental changes. But again, it's information that's available there on our website. We'd encourage people to register again. There's 250,000 roughly again of diabetic patients out there, and probably quite a number more who remain undiagnosed. So it'd be important to get that checked out as well. I think we treat our bodies, Rob was alluding to it earlier, we need to treat our bodies a little bit better, almost as good as our NCT. We take our bodies once a year to a GP or get checked out and deal with whatever comes up. And it's never as bad as your mind tells you it's going to be. That's we always go to the worst place possible. But as I said, I think let's build on the Andy Farrell mentality and embrace that vulnerability that we all have. We're not perfect. We're not going to be healthy all our lives. Let's open up to that and treat our bodies as we treat our cars.
Well done, Alan. Rob, just coming off the back of that, I mean, I'm sure people watching were surprised when you talked about, your younger self and maybe treating the body differently, is there a call out you would have for men nationally, internationally, even saying in relation to, how we can mind ourselves better and why that's so important, especially when this is the week that counts, men's health counts.
Yeah, it is. And it comes back to, a point I made earlier, just about building good habits. And, the great thing about habits is, I think it only takes 2 weeks to incorporate a habit into your daily life, that it's something then you begin to get used to and it becomes a part of your everyday life. And the other thing is that little bit of exercise, be it a walk, a run, whatever it is, people have different levels of mobility, and exercise to one person is very different to the next. But the endorphin release that you get from exercise is enormous. And I think that's one thing that, people sometimes disregard a little bit is how after a little bit of exercise, you do feel better. You feel physically better, mentally you feel better. And then I suppose, not to repeat myself, but going back and asking yourself, okay, well, how do I feel after that bit of exercise? Yeah, I feel really good. I'm going to try and do it again tomorrow. And then 2 weeks later, hopefully it becomes a part of your everyday life.
Len, I'm going to come back to you for just before I finish with Finian. We're running on time here, but your call out just for those men who are out there, yeah, like Rob was saying, bringing that thing into your life, keeping it in. What is your call out to the men of Ireland, especially in relation to finding that new place where maybe they could mind themselves?
Do whatever you can to keep moving. I mean, to sort of ride on Rob's coattails there. What he was talking about is with regard to it not needing to be a huge amount of exercise or activity. It can be small amounts. There's a study a number of years ago on these places around the world called blue zones, where people regularly live beyond 100 years of age. And what they found is that these people aren't running marathons. Their lives are set up so they have a lot of gentle but consistent exercise throughout the day. Their houses have 2 or 3 steps here, 2 or 3 steps there. Their gardens are set up so that as they're doing them, they're bending and stretching and doing this all day long in, not super exhaustive ways, but in, just stay moving, just be active, be limber, be flexible, that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be a marathon. It's just the act of just keeping moving and of schedule and repetition, and keep doing the same things over and over.
Okay,
is really useful.
Well, that's the word to the men of Ireland. The very last word I'm going to just give to Finian on this, because he knows where all this stuff is stored. Finian, the mhfi.org, a last call out before we say goodbye to you is there on the panel today.
Yeah, but even before that, just listening to Alan and Rob, it reminds me of the old joke. If I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. Yeah. So there's a bit of truth in that. But all the resources for Men's Health Week and for Men's Health generally are to be found on the Men's Health Forum in Ireland website. It's mhfi.org, and it's very user friendly. So that's the main signpost for men's health on the island of Ireland. So thanks for everybody for taking part.
Okay, and thanks, Rob. You mentioned as well there, like, knowledge is power. That's what we leave you with, folks. Find the information, read, become familiar with the information, and have a look at it, and then decide what's appropriate to yourself for the time that's in it. Folks, I'm going to hand over to our Fergal now for the last part of the day. Rob and Finian and Len and Alan, thank you so much for being part of this short conversation we've had today, and also for the interviews earlier on. Go well, everybody, and mind yourselves, and have a really, really good Men's Health Week. Over to you, Ferg.
Thank you very much, Lorcan, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I really appreciate your participation and attendance on the webinar. If you're watching this back, as everybody may know, this might be your first webinar with us, we have all our Men's Health webinars up on our YouTube channel, and you may be watching this, following the event, but really appreciate you taking the time to register and for your interest in men's health. So as you've heard over and over again, this is Men's Health Week. We're significantly fewer men than women access health services in a timely manner. So we need to support and encourage men's access and utilization of health and social care services. And there's loads of different ways you can do that, as you just heard. And I'd just like to thank, first of all, Lorcan, Noel, Colin, Rob, Glenn, Finian, and Alan for their input today. It was really, really beautiful series of inputs. I really appreciate everybody's input today. Just a couple of more signposts before you go. I want to highlight a new service, a new online dedicated suicide bereavement service for men from HUG. That's HUGG. Check out their website, hugg.ie. They're after developing the service. They know that there's more men, obviously, dying by suicide, but also men are struggling to access bereavement supports for suicide. So they've set up a dedicated piece for HUG for Men, it's called. And one of the great phrases they use in their communication around this is they're trying to find healthy coping strategies for men. And that really cuts across everything that we're trying to do with men. And obviously, Rob was talking about resilience earlier on. And loads of men and people in general are struggling with different things in their lives. So we're always looking to encourage healthy coping mechanisms and healthy coping strategies, as HUG Men put it. So check out hugmen.ie. We'd send the link to that service. The other shout I'd give to one of our big allies is the Mary Keating Foundation. Helen Forrester just put a message up there in the chat, marykeating.ie. They're doing fantastic work around engaging men. They've also participated in our webinars before. So really appreciate the work of Mary Keating. What else I want to say? There's loads of things happening this week around the country. You may see them if you're following the hashtag Men's Health Week or Know Your Numbers, hashtag Know Your Numbers. You'll see loads of things that are happening in local communities, from breakfast mornings engaging men in communities, family resource centres. There's so many of them activating on Men's Health Week, local sports partnerships, and our own health promotion and improvement colleagues around the country are doing a variety of different things. So you may see that. If you get an opportunity, please do something for yourself or encourage the men in your life to engage. In terms of our own work, we have a Focus on Fatherhood podcast coming out this Wednesday. A lovely interview with Shane Lynch, who's delivering parenting in Clondalkin, all about his work and his experience delivering as a parenting facilitator and how he's trying to get men into the parenting programs. It's a lovely piece. That'll be going live on Wednesday. And as I said, just look around. You will see opportunities to engage in men's health, hopefully. And as the lad said already, mhfi.org is the key signpost for any resources that you want. So that's all from me. I'd just like to thank everybody again for their input today and appreciate your attendance. Have a great week. Thank you.